Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. I have my friend Scott Jennings with me today. He has just written a new book. You know him as the host of the Scott Jennings radio show on Salem. Also, you see him fighting liberals every day on CNN. But right now, he's got a new book out. It's called A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. Scott, thanks so much for coming on.
I'm really honored to be here, Tudor. Thanks for having me on to talk about this great book. I've been working on it all year, and finally it's in bookstores. You can walk in and buy it today.
That is so I saw you were at the White House and you sat with the president. It seems like you maybe went there and had some discussions, and then he actually signed it too. So he's a fan.
Yes, he cooperated, and I interviewed quite a bit of the cabinet and several of his senior staffers. So they were very generous with their time and access this year. So I signed one for him, and he signed one for me. And I was in there for about an hour on Monday, and I saw the Vice President, J.D. Vance. And, as always, if you're in the Oval Office, there's a lot of people coming and going. So it was fun to be there. He was on his way to the McDonald's speech the other night when I saw him, but he was in a pretty good mood, and I got a bit of a tutorial about the East Wing construction. So you never know what you're going to get when you go in there, but it's always exciting.
Absolutely, and he was right about the tartar sauce on the filet of fish. There should be more. True. I hope McDonald's listens.
Here's a true behind-the-scenes story. I was talking to Abby Phillip, my friend here at CNN, who I'm on her show a lot at night, and she actually said, I agree with Donald Trump. The Filet-O-Fish sandwich is the best sandwich, and they don't use enough tartar sauce. So we found common ground between Trump and Abby over the Filet-O-Fish.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. That is so funny. But I was like, that is so something he would say, and he's right about it. And that's something that you talk about. He's an unscripted politician, and it's so hard to find someone who's just genuine, because so many of us are like, yeah, I want to say that too. And he just says it. And that's not just about McDonald's. It's about so many other things. You think that this is kind of like a new era of politician, but how many people can really be like that?
Well, it's a great question. I'll tackle the first part first, which is I think he's totally changed media and politics in that, we're done with the era of scripted politicians, people who can only read a script or read something that someone else has written for them. Audiences want you to speak from the heart. They want to know that this is authentically what you believe. He has mastered that. You can say a lot of things about Donald Trump, but no one could ever accuse him of not telling us what's on his mind. I mean, he does. And so that's number one. Number two, I think this is also affecting our media choices. I think people are looking at, cable news or whatever show they want to watch, and they're wondering, is this an authentic conversation or is this a scripted thing? And I think the things that are unscripted and more authentic are succeeding right now. That's why a lot of independent media is succeeding, because, they're not, doing things in a tight little box with a teleprompter and stuff. They're just kind of going from the heart. And I think it has a lot of appeal. That is part of his political magic.
It's funny because I've seen people who try to replicate it, and it is very hard for the typical politician to break out of the box. And I think if you've spent some time in the political world, you know that it's also risky, because if you just shoot from the hip, you can say something you can't come back from. He seems to be immune from that.
Well, I think what he learned is that people will forgive you your mistakes or your contradictions or whatever, as long as they believe you're being straight with them and you're speaking from the heart. That's number one. Number two, you can see the difference in him when he speaks off the cuff versus when they try to put him on the teleprompter. Like the energy level,
so different.
It's so different, and I just think he is 1,000% better when they just wind him up and let him go. And maybe he says a few things that people get bent out of shape about, but I just think that's what audiences are looking for. The American people just want folks to be straight with them. And these scripted politicians like Kamala Harris was, or there are even some Republicans that he ran against. That's all they were capable of doing, was just reading what someone else put in front of their face. And that, I just have a feeling we're past that now. Authenticity is the coin of the realm.
Yeah, I agree. I see it. Also see it more on the Republican side. I mean, J.D. Vance goes out and does these podcasts, and he talks long form. A lot of Republicans are starting to do this. But if you look at the Democrat Party, I mean, you brought up Kamala. She obviously couldn't do it. She can't have those long form conversations. But even if you look at the most recent races in New Jersey and in D.C. or in Virginia, and then also especially in New York, Mamdani, he gave a lot of scripted speeches. He's an actor. His mother is a producer. He was very well produced. He didn't go and sit and just shoot the breeze with people. Do you think this is only a Republican thing? Are the Democrats just sticking to their talking points?
Well, I think in the case of Mamdani, once he won the primary, I mean, they just needed to not make any mistakes. I mean, so they were running sort of, I think, a risk-averse campaign. And look, he got to run against Andrew Cuomo twice. I mean, how many people are this lucky in politics? He got to run against disliked people. The guy was disgraced when he left office. And so Mamdani got lucky in some ways. I think people who are trying to rise up in politics, in most cases, are going to have to exude some of that authenticity. And sometimes it just has to do with the circumstances you're in, the people that you're running against. You know, when you look at the Trump versus Harris race, I mean, she was incapable of answering basic questions in unscripted settings. She couldn't do it. Look, her campaign effectively ended the day that she went on The View. And Sonny Hostin, of all people, one of the dumbest people on American television, said, well, hey, is there anything that you would do differently than Joe Biden? And she says, I can't think of anything. And so that, I mean, honestly, like it ended her campaign that day because she's only capable of scripted, tightly controlled settings. So even The View in that case was a dangerous environment for her. The better candidates are going to be people who have enough confidence to go into any kind of a conversational setting and be confident enough what they're doing and what they're saying to answer questions from people, friendly or hostile.
Well, you brought up The View. We've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene recently on The View. She has suddenly she's like turned against what got her elected, which seems very weird. She's turned against I would say she's turned against the grassroots. She's turned against MAGA in general. She's certainly made it clear that she's turned against the president. And he responded. He doesn't always respond to things like this that are close to home. But I do think that this one is particularly painful because they were close and he did come out and support her and vice versa. She came out and supported him. You have some behind the scenes information that I had also heard about the poll. Do you think that she is acting out of emotion here? And can she come back from this?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak to her motivations about how she's feeling today. Obviously, she has chosen to go on a media tour to attack the president. I mean, that's her choice right now. I do think, and I talked to people around the president. I spoke to him about it the other night. Look, early this summer, she wanted to run for office in Georgia statewide. They sent her a poll. He did it discreetly. He did it behind the scenes. He didn't choose to embarrass her or do anything publicly, but they showed her the information to try to save her from a humiliation in Georgia, that it just wasn't going to work out for her. And since that time, she has opposed the president on his Middle East policy. She has opposed the president on deportations. She has gone on all sorts of liberal media and attacked the president. And it all kind of started about the time that they sent her that information. He was trying to do her a favor, I believe, and save her from a humiliation. And she has reacted negatively to that. And so it's unfortunate. You know, I know they were friends and look, people come and go. I saw Elon Musk at a state dinner this week.
I know, right? Exactly. You never know what will happen.
So you would hope that, like, you know, people, you know, put these kinds of things aside, because I truly also believe that the common enemy is the left, not each other inside the conservative movement. And the more we fight each other, the worse off we're going to be in our fight against the left. So, you know, I'm always hoping for good vibes and good feelings inside the tent. But sometimes people do things that I think aren't good. And I think her attacking Donald Trump on The View and watching the hosts and the audience sit there and clap like seals is not at all helpful to the conservative movement.
But you have a very interesting perspective on it because you've been in the White House. You see kind of the behind the scenes. You knew the behind the scenes from the Bush White House. I think a lot of people don't see it the way you see it. And the fact that you bring out, like, he's doing her a favor. He's talking to her. He's saying, you have a brand. You have a lot of power. And I think that's what people miss. When you're in Congress, you are in a small district in the state. when you run for Senate, you have to win over the whole state. Georgia is a different state than, I mean, it's not a red state. I know some people mistake it because they're like, oh, it's a southern state, so it's red, but it's not a red state. She's in a very red district. So when you say he was protecting her, he was trying to be generous, and he did it quietly. That is very significant to me because it shows a side of Donald Trump that people don't necessarily see, but his entire administration, because it's not a decision that he makes in a vacuum. They discuss it as a team.
Oh, yeah. And look, when you're the president, you have a political affairs team, and you're the titular head of your party. I worked in political affairs when I worked for President Bush. And so the party looks to you for sound decision making and sound judgment when it comes to political affairs and political issues going on throughout your political party. It's not unusual for people who want to run for office to seek the advice of the president or his political team. And so in this case, they were giving her, I think, the best advice they could, but it was in the form of information. And the information was quite clear about what the outcome would be if she chose to run against Jon Ossoff. She would not have come anywhere near winning Senate in Georgia. And so that was good for her to know, and it was good for them to be honest with her. The worst thing you can do is, just kind of play along with something when you know it's a terrible idea. So I think it was a moment of honesty. But again, it was done discreetly, and they didn't try to publicly humiliate her over that. They didn't try to embarrass her. But now she's out trying to embarrass the president. And
right, and the left just jumps on that. They love that.
Oh, the easiest way to get on TV in Washington as a Republican is to be willing to criticize Trump or crap on your own people. That's the fastest way to get on TV and to start to get all the plaudits from the media and the people who run that. And so that's what she's doing now. And it's I'm sure it's highly disappointing to him because, as you pointed out, they had a close relationship.
So you're talking about the Trump White House, but you were there for the Bush White House. What are the big differences? Because obviously on the outside, we see differences and we assume things, but you have been on the inside of both. Tell us what you see.
The main difference, of course, is the communications environment in which Trump operates and which Bush operated. Bush came just before the dawn of social media. So the way you had to deal with the press, the way information moved, it was a lot slower and a lot different. Now they are in an instantaneous, dynamic communications environment. The political information distribution complex is far less influential today than it has ever been. The corporate media is less influential today. There's all this new media, people with YouTube channels and podcasts and independent journalists. There's just more ways to get your message out today for Trump than there ever was for George W. Bush. So it's even hard to compare because the communications eras are so different. But I think the other thing is, and this is what Republicans love about the president, the man fights back. When you are a Republican president, you've got the media that's trying to destroy you. You've got Democrats that are trying to destroy you, and you've got the entrenched federal bureaucracy that's trying to stop you at a minimum and destroy you at worst. And so you have to fight back, and that's what Trump does. He fights back. And in this term, what I learned about my reporting for the book is it's easy to get overwhelmed by these antagonistic forces in Washington, and Trump just decided, I'm going to overwhelm them. I mean, he basically said, you throw a pebble at me, I'm throwing a boulder back at you. And he overwhelmed them, and he was able to hit the ground running in this term before they ever even really got out of bed and realized what was happening to them. And I think he picked the team to do that, who understood his management style and his leadership style. And most people I know that voted for Trump are elated with how much he's been able to get done inside that strategy over 10 months.
Stick around. We have more with Scott Jennings, but if you're over 50, you need to hear this, especially if you're worried about your heart health. Nattokinase. It's a word you need to remember. It's an ancient Japanese superfood, and it can help you reduce your heart attack risk and improve your cardiovascular health. You've got to think about Luma Nutrition. They have a powerful nattokinase that they have perfected. It is made in the United States of America, and it is third-party tested for purity and quality. You want to buy your supplements from a source you can trust, and that's Luma Nutrition. Luma Nutrition was founded by a former U.S. Army officer, and they are on a mission to provide the highest quality natural supplements made right here in the USA. And this is good for your heart. You want to make sure you have the best heart health out there. So now you can try nattokinase for up to 40% off when you visit lumanutrition.com. That's LUMA nutrition.com. Again, it's lumanutrition.com for your heart health. It's veteran owned and proudly made in the USA. Go there today, but stick around. We've got more with Scott Jennings after this. We love that because you're right. He can get his message out, but the attacks also come fast and furious in a different way than they have before. And in the past, Republicans have been kind of mealy-mouthed. They haven't really fought back. There hasn't been this aggression. It's almost like, we're the kind party. We're the nice guys. We're Midwest nice across the whole party, so we don't go out and attack. But he is all New York, right? So he just goes right after them. And I think for us, that has been incredibly valuable from the standpoint of what we're headed into in the midterms in 28. Because we have been used to being attacked and backing down. I'll take the BBC, for example. They said, we apologize. We're not going to do anything else. And he immediately said, I'm going to sue. Now, all of these legal experts have come out and said he can't do it. I'm on the side of, keep fighting, because if you can even make them pay $10,000, that moment is big for a company like that. And every other media company goes, you know what? We better be careful about how we do things. Just like the CBS interview, we better be careful about manipulating this stuff in the future. And it only happens if you make them feel financial pain.
I think one of the things Trump looks at in these situations is this question: is this a fight worth having? And whether it's with the media, who treats Republicans terribly, or whether it's with these universities who have treated Jewish students on their campuses terribly, or, name your institution. If they are corrupt, if they are failing, and if they are hurting people, is this a fight worth having? And Trump often decides, yes, it is a fight worth having. Maybe I don't have a great chance of success. Maybe a court's going to, disagree with me. But the fight is worth having because it sheds light on the institutional failure. I look at what he's done with these universities, and they're run atrociously. There's no ideological diversity on campus. They allow Jewish students and sometimes Christian students to be terrorized on their campuses with these radicals, who hate America and hate the West running wild on campus. Trump says, "What? We don't have to allow this. Why can't someone step into the breach here and say, hold on, you're failing as an institution. It's a fight worth having." And so when you have these fights with institutions, of course, it makes them angry. So you hear media people raging, or you hear university people raging, but that's okay. I think the American people have concluded, or at least have a strong suspicion, that many of our institutions have failed us. And so they're looking for someone to pick this fight, because having the fights leads to reform. The media will reform. The universities will reform. These institutions that have failed can reform, but often reform requires a little conflict to get it going. And I think that's what Trump, the catalyst, has provided.
I think you're right about the fact that he looks at the problem and he goes, is this worth battling? And I think he sees it from a media perspective. Not only has he been in the construction and building industry, but he also had the media. He had his show, and he has that mindset of, central casting and what's going to come out good and what is worth having out there in the public. But the Epstein files has been he's gone back and forth on that. When he was campaigning, he was all about, he's going to release the Epstein files. And then it almost seems like once he got into office, he really was in the mode of, I've got 2 years to push these things through, and we're going to have the midterms, and we've got to see how the midterms go. But when you get in and you've got a 4-year term and you have midterms in the middle, he's thinking, I got to push everything through, and he doesn't want distractions. And I truly believe that he knows that the Epstein files are going to consume all of the media's time for the next year. Ultimately, he has changed that. He said this week, go out there, vote on it. You know what? I'm fine with letting it all come out. Interestingly, you've talked about how he excommunicated Epstein from Mar-a-Lago, which so far what we've seen coming out of these files is it seems like Epstein was never happy with Trump. He was always kind of going against him. You even see it when he's coaching the the Democrat in the hearing about Trump. Like, hey, here's what you can bring out, and here's how you can attack more. He is actually coaching someone on a committee that is going after Trump. We see that now. Wouldn't it have been quite devastating for Epstein and his dirty little business to be excommunicated from a big club like Mar-a-Lago? Because it's not just that he can't do business there. That suddenly destroys his reputation. And what he did, as disgusting as it was all based on reputation. So wouldn't it be fair to say he was likely not a fan of Donald Trump?
Oh, I think your comment about what we're learning is that he hated Trump is right. Look at some of the emails that have been released. I think he hated Trump because Trump threw him out. I mean, when Trump realized, I mean, it seems to me, and look, I wasn't there, you weren't there, but it just looks like that when Trump realized this guy was a total creep, he jettisoned him from Mar-a-Lago. He got rid of him out of his life. Contrast that to the Democrats. Jeffrey Epstein gets convicted of sex crimes, and they are still buddying up with this guy. They are consulting with him. They want to raise money from him. Got Hakeem Jeffries trying to get him to come to a fundraiser. You've got Larry Summers, the president of Harvard, the former Bill Clinton Treasury Secretary, soliciting dating advice from Jeffrey Epstein. You've got Stacy Plaskett, who's texting with him, what do I say now? What do I say now? It's like he was controlling a member of Congress and programming what they were going to say. In a hearing, I think the Democrats and the media have wanted the Epstein story to be a Trump story. What we may find out is that it's a Democrat story, and how tied in to the Democratic establishment and to the left that Epstein really was. So they've been clamoring for this. It may blow up in their face, because it seems to me that the real story here is Trump got rid of the guy. Democrats never did. And we may find out the depths of that now.
Well, and I saw you talking about this on CNN, and somebody and the whole Stacy Plaskett thing, and somebody said, "Well, we don't know that she knew anything about him at that time." But he had already been convicted in 2012, right?
Yes, he had been, and the conversation, and the conversations with Plaskett occurred in 2019. At this point, he's convicted sex trafficker, and so look. And then she says, well, it's just my constituent. And then she went on CNN this morning, I guess, and said, well, some people did some things. And so she really has stepped in it here. But Democrats knew what they were dealing with, but the fundraising connections that he had, and look, what Plaskett was doing was clear. They hate Trump so much that they were willing to coordinate with and align with a convicted sex trafficker that also hated Donald Trump. Orange man bad means I will align with the worst people in the world if I can get a political advantage or score some points on Donald Trump. That is basically how the Democratic Party operates. We now know that. The documents are quite clear. The Washington Post has reported on this. So it's simply not true that we don't really know what was going on. Plaskett knew, they know, and now everybody knows. And it's an embarrassment for the Democratic Party.
Well, considering this has been the topic of conversation for all of these months now, and this is their focus, and they are just, they didn't say anything when Biden was in office. Now they're just all over this, but they wouldn't censure her. They wouldn't censure Stacy Plaskett. So what does that say? How much do they really care?
Yeah, and and sadly, I saw that some Republicans may have not wanted to do it either, which I don't get it. Like, look, she did a bad thing here, and then she also has lied about it. And if we're going to be serious about Epstein, and if we're going to go down the road here of saying anyone who had anything to do with Epstein is tainted and we have to make them take responsibility for it, well, that's got to apply to Democrats too. Again, they want this to be a story about Donald Trump. But when it's your own party, you got to hold everybody to the same standard. And I don't know. I just think a lot more Democrats had a lot more to do with Epstein than Donald Trump ever did. But what I have also learned, Tudor, is I don't think Democrats care about the victims. I don't think they care about any of the outcomes here. They just care about dunking on Trump. They want to create narratives about Trump. They want people to believe that Trump had something to do with this when there's not a shred of evidence that he has done anything wrong or had anything to do with it at all. They did the same thing on Russia. They wanted everyone to believe that Russia had stolen the election. And by the way, they were successful. One whole political party takes it as an article of faith that Russia stole the 2016 election. And now I assume if you went to a Democratic political dinner, 100% of the people in there would take it as an article of faith that Donald Trump had something to do with Epstein, when you and I know there's not a shred of evidence to support that.
Right, absolutely. And it's not just that I think they don't care about the victims. I mean, we look at what has happened in the last 2 months. They shut down the government. They would not vote for the same thing they'd voted for time and time again under Joe Biden. They allowed our military to go without payments. And for those people who weren't close to somebody, let me tell you, we have a family at our school that went without pay for weeks and got to the point where they were pretty humiliated. I mean, that's the thing about it. It's not just that you're in a financial disaster. You're humiliated. You're working without pay and you can't pay your bills. They allowed the American people to be humiliated. They allowed people to go without the benefits that they should have. And they still can't say that Obamacare is a failure.
Yeah, the Affordable Care Act, it's not affordable and you can't get any care. I mean, it was an act. It has that going for it. But the first two words are inoperable. This is what Democrats do. They name legislation the opposite of what it does. Remember
Totally,
the Inflation
yes.
Reduction Act? It did not reduce inflation. It was an act, but it was the Inflation Act. And so they will frequently name things the opposite of what they do. They want to pin this tail on the Republicans. It's Obamacare is the underlying issue. The subsidies were Democratic subsidies. The sunset provision was a Democratic provision. All of these things are problems manifested by the Democrats, and you want to turn this into a Republican problem? I mean, good luck. I think what we learned in the shutdown fight is the Democratic healthcare regime under which we all live is a total failure. It is in complete collapse. We also learned that the SNAP benefit program, 43 million Americans on SNAP, I was shocked when I heard that number. And so now we need to have a conversation about the broader welfare state. And I think it's right that the Trump folks are going to make people reapply for this because there is fraud and abuse in that system. Those things need to exist for the people who truly need it, not for the people who are defrauding it or who are somehow gaming the system. And so the welfare reform they did in the Big Beautiful Bill was good and it's generational. Now it continues with SNAP, and I think it's long overdue.
And there's such shame if you bring it up and you say this should be looked at. It reminds me a lot of when we were talking about men and women's sports and the shame of you can't question anything, which I find interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but Joy Reid recently was interviewed and she said, well, I don't want a man in my locker room. I don't want to see a penis in my locker room. And I was like,
really?
Wait, what? Welcome.
You're like 98%.
This is what we've been saying.
You now match 98% of the rest of us who think, yes, women should play against women. Men should play against men. They should not share a locker room. By the way, the title of my book, A Revolution of Common Sense, there is an entire section in here about the transgender issues that Trump has tackled. That's one of a bunch of cultural issues where we were sort of forced down our throats this uncommon nonsense of the left. DEI is another part of it. But Trump shows up and says, wait a minute, I'm just going to say what everyone else is thinking. This is crazy. So that's one of the reasons he won the election. And then, of course, he acted on it when he got in office. And I think a lot of people are grateful for it.
Right. Well, I think that's the key here for people who are trying to figure out how to talk about this, because we watch you every day. And I have to say, there's like this jealousy when I watch him. Like, how does he do it? He's so smart. He knows all these. He's able to just go after every one of these arguments. But we're now in a situation where even in our own personal lives, you talk about Hitler and the fact that Hitler, the statement of being Hitler has no meaning anymore. You talk about all of these things that have to do with common sense, but we don't know how to talk back about it. And that's why I do want people to go get the book, because you don't get to escape politics as much as you might want to. And guess what? Thanksgiving is coming and Christmas is coming, and you're going to have people attacking you about politics, and this will help you talk about it.
Let me give you some advice. If you know somebody who loves Trump, give this to them for Christmas. They'll be elated. If you know someone who hates Trump, put this under the tree and watch them unwrap it on Christmas morning, and you'll have the best Christmas of your life. Either way, it's a winner. So go to the bookstore or go to Amazon and get it today. I'm really proud that I was able to write it and had great access. Some of the things Elon told me, by the way, eye-popping. And so there's some great stuff in there and great issues, and I hope you like it.
That's actually, the Elon interview is very interesting. He has this great desire to keep the United States from going bankrupt. I think we are so spoiled. We think, we're fine.
Mhm.
And he was uniquely in that position going, I'm looking at these numbers. It's not okay.
I asked him, why are you here? And he said, I'm trying to find a way to make America not go bankrupt. And that was one sort of part of our conversation. But he thinks, our fiscal issues, devaluing our currency, combined with the mass migration crisis that we have suffered and that Europe has suffered, he thinks all of this is going to sort of culminate into a downfall of the West, our falling birth rates. He thinks this is part of it. And so, he's quite clear about his mission. He thinks Western civilization is hanging in the balance. And that's why he supported Trump. That's why he went into the government. And I spoke to him, I think, on the president's 101st day in office. And I could tell Elon was a little bent out of shape with Washington, that I don't think he found people there that he thought really shared his urgency for the problems that we face. I didn't realize he and Trump were going to part ways there for a couple of months over the big, beautiful bill. And I saw that they're back together this week at the Saudi state dinner, which I'm grateful for. But Elon is feeling an urgency about what we're facing in this world. It's not politics as usual. There's more existential things going on here that we have to solve.
I think that anybody who goes into Washington for the first time is stunned by the lack of movement. It's not like business. You think it is, but it's not.
It's not like business. And of course, Elon was getting his first taste of government service. And you run headlong into this bureaucracy in Washington. You run headlong into Capitol Hill, and it can be enormously frustrating for people who are used to moving fast and breaking things. I think the principles of Doge and what they were trying to do are enormously valuable. We spend money on a bunch of nonsense. The president laid a lot of it out in his March speech to Congress. And, it was funny to us at the time, but can you imagine, how did our government produce funding transgender operas in other countries and all sort of the nonsense that we were funding? Like, somehow our bureaucracy wound up deciding to do that. And it is more than annoying. It is alarming, because if you would decide to do that with our money, what else would you decide to do? And so I think what Elon was trying to accomplish was totally worthwhile, and the program ought to continue. Maybe you could do better PR on it over time, but I think the idea that reining in that kind of annoying or worse spending, it was one of the better features of the first part of the year for Trump.
Oh, absolutely. Exposing that was invaluable. The American people needed to see it, and without Elon, it wouldn't have happened. So I appreciate him, but I appreciate you. I appreciate what you have done on TV. I appreciate your book. Tell everybody where they can get it, because they're getting close to Christmas. They got to go now.
Go now. It's called A Revolution of Common Sense. Walk into a bookstore and it should be in there, or go on Amazon and you'll have it the next day. Wherever you get your books, you can buy the hard copy and put it under the Christmas tree. You can get the Audible version. I read it myself. And so if you like audiobooks, you can do that. However you get it, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something. And you'll learn a little bit about Trump behind the scenes, and you'll learn about Trump interpersonally. I didn't know him that well when I started writing the book, but I got to spend some time with him, and it was an eye-opening experience and a valuable experience. And I think it'll make you a more informed person on American politics if you read the book.
And if you listen, you get that nice Kentucky accent. It'll be great.
You got it. I had the drawl and all in there. So I hope you like that too.
We're rivals. I went to UK, so.
Did you go to UK?
I did, yeah.
I don't think I did. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, Louisville beat Kentucky the other night. I'm sorry.
Oh, stop. Yes, let's not talk about it. Why did I bring this up?
Oh, yeah. Louisville's going to be good this year. We might be Final Four material. I've been a Kentucky fan for a part of my life, too, so I always like going to games in both Rupp Arena and the Yum Center. But Louisville did get the better of the Cats the other night, so.
Well, I might have a girl going to UK in a few years. We visited over the summer and she loved it. So we'll see.
That's
But
great.
I'm a big Kentucky fan in general. And I am a big fan of yours, Scott Jennings. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Tudor. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. As always, you can get it on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you join us next time. And as always, have a blessed day.